Okay, hey, I'm going to talk about the difference between freedom and liberty in the ancient world, using the text from the class, Aristotle and the Concept of Freedom by Mariah Walsh, and Cicero and the Roman Republicanism, and what is it? The Contested Meaning of Liberty by Jeff Kennedy. So we're going to start with Aristotle and maybe what freedom means in the ancient Roman times, right? So Walsh argues that Aristotle's idea of freedom is the capacity to direct oneself to the ends which one's reason rightly recognizes as choice worthy. And so that basically just translates into this idea of freedom. You're free to do what you want. You don't have a master, so you're not a slave. So slaves are subject to masters, wives are subject to husbands, debtors are subject to the debt holders. And so you're free of all those. And so we get to this idea of eleutheria, which is this Greek idea of freedom, right? And it's interesting that Eleutheria kind of ties into this idea of the goddess Artemis. She's an epithet for Artemis, right? And so she has these traits and characteristics of the goddess of Artemis, who was the goddess of the hunt and nature and wildlife, right? And so this innocence, this nature, this natural state in which she's free of control of a husband, she's free of control of lust and love, as she's immune to the powers of Aphrodite, and so she has freedom and control over herself, right? And so ultimately, when we're looking at Greece, if we're free, what are we free to do? Well, Greeks are always focused on the good. And so we're free and we're looking to circle back to this idea of the good. What is the good, right? So freedom to be thinking about the good. And a freeman will be able to know what is good and what is bad. So what's worth his time? Where should he be spending his efforts? While a slave or someone that's controlled should be is going to be dependent on someone that I guess that's unfree would be dependent on their master or their owner, right? And so the article talks a little bit about the discussion of not working for pay or working for pleasure, or not working for the pleasure of the crowds, but working for the good, the fulfillment of good. And so I think that's interesting because, like, he's going to talk about Aristotle's going to put down the idea of labor, but could you labor for something that's good? Could you just labor for the enjoyment of it? And so, in terms of freedom, Aristotle's going to look at that. This idea of democratic freedom is going to rest in living as one wishes and having an equal say in the ruling as one's fellow citizens. And so we're going to kind of just skip over here to Rome and Cicero and Kennedy's work, right? And so when we're looking at what Cicero is going to look at is this idea of liberty or libertas. The Romans have, and it's not. They spend a lot of time in the art. Kennedy spends a lot of time in the article talking about like positive and negative, or liberties, which it gets really, really, really heady and deep and thick. But basically, if we can boil it down, we're looking at Cicero is going to say liberty is the possession of rights and the absence of subjugation. So no one's telling you what to do while you have rights. And one of the big ideas within Rome, one of the reasons that Rome dislikes democracy or dislikes the ideas of the democratic ideas of Greece is they feel like democracy is really, really messy. And so Rome wants to be ordered. And so Cicero is going to argue that, liberty is this idea in which the best men are going to lead. And so we're going to have a government where the best men are going to lead. The dignities are going to lead and they're going to keep order, right? And so liberty and democracy is too messy. If everybody gets a say in it, then you're going to have a mess. However, you can't take rights away from people because that's not liberty. And so the argument I believe that kind of gets this is that everybody has legal rights were open to all people. So in this idea of liberty, we have liberal rights, legal rights are open to everybody, but political rights are reserved for the citizens or the higher ups in Rome, and that's a way to keep order instead of giving political rights to everybody, which would cause chaos. We're going to keep the political realm with the elites, but we're going to open up legal rights, legal representation to everybody. And so liberty is a form of order that exists. It talks a little bit about the loss of secret ballots towards the tail end of that, and you're going to lose as Rome progresses towards a dictatorship or the emperors. You're going to lose that idea of subjugation when you lose the secret ballot. But that's going to be the end of my time. So that's what I'm throwing out there for my ideas on ancient world and freedom and liberty. Thanks.